Welcome to the Five Rivers podcast, sponsored by Heald. Today's episode is especially for women in their 40s and 50s who are experiencing big shifts in how their bodies respond, especially around energy, weight, and blood sugar. Now, you might be wondering, at least I was, why is a man hosting a conversation about women's midlife health? It's absolutely a fair question. The truth is that I'm here as a listener and a learner. This episode isn't about me or Heald for that matter. It's about creating a space for conversation that so many women tell us they don't hear enough of. I may not have lived these expectations. Obviously, I have loved ones that do and have and will, but I deeply respect them. And I'm grateful to bring in someone like Igor, who's worked closely with hundreds of women navigating these exact challenges. We'll explore how midlife can be a powerful turning point, not because of age, but because it's often the first time many women start listening to their bodies differently and more intentionally. Joining me today is Igor Klibanov, a respected fitness and nutrition expert who's helped hundreds of women improve their metabolic health through sustainable lifestyle shifts. Not restriction, but lifestyle shifts. He's also the author of many books, including Mastering Menopause, The No BS Guide to Intermittent Fasting for Women, and 16 others. And I want you to think about that for a second. 18 books is what I have in front of me as a list of what Igor has written. And Igor, we're thrilled to have you here. That just by itself is a mind-boggling stat on the number of books you've written. So you must be obviously really passionate about the subject and wanting to help out as many women as possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is fun for me. The research that goes into the book, the writing of the book, the
Yeah.
publication, the marketing, everything. This is a lot of fun for me.
Perfect, perfect. So was there a moment or experience, if we were just expand on this, was there a moment or experience that led you to this work specifically with women over 40s on a health transformation? And what drew you to the intersection of habits, hormones, and blood sugar?
Yeah, there wasn't any specific event other than my work. When I was first starting out as a personal trainer 19 years ago, my goal was to work with athletes, just like a lot of personal trainers
Mm,
do. Um, but I was working at a community center and a country club, and none of my clients were athletes. Most of them were middle aged and older.
mm,
But what I wanted to do is, well, regardless of who I was working with, I wanted to do a great job with them. Now, I was already going to school for kinesiology at that time for my bachelor's, but they didn't really prepare for the specifics of menopause or chronic conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, etc. But
mm,
again, I didn't just want to do a good job; I wanted to do the best job possible. And so, again, there wasn't a certification like that at the time. My general degree in personal training certification just gave me general guidelines for
mm.
people who don't have any chronic conditions, are not menopausal, etc. So I did the research. And when I say research, I don't mean Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I meant reading the medical
Like most
journal.
research these days.
Yeah, I mean real research, real medical research. Fortunately, as part of my kinesiology degree, a huge part is statistics and research methods.
Mm,
Um, so I actually have the ability to read scientific journals. And so I want to do a great job with them. And every time I read something about, a topic relevant to my clients, whether it's menopause, diabetes,
mm,
something else, it opens up my eyes to so many things that are out there in the
mm.
mainstream that are either incorrect or flat out harmful.
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes sense, and we certainly do respect and appreciate the amount of research that goes behind because these are not small conversations. I mean, you're talking about something that is deeply emotional, deeply personal, and deeply impactful, right? So the least we can do, I mean, and we follow this as a company as well. The least we can do is the information that we deliver, the details that we share, the science behind it is well researched, well thought out, vetted, if you will, for lack of a better term. So we can certainly appreciate what you guys or what you as a trainer, instructor, expert, believer in science has been able to do over the last few years. My question to you is that um, what are some of the key metabolic shifts that women experience in midlife, and how can they differentiate these hormonal changes from lifestyle induced issues like say insulin resistance?
Yeah, yeah, great question. First, let's define what metabolism is, because a lot of people think all it is burning calories.
Mm,
That's one aspect of metabolism, but the actual word metabolism, the only thing that means is the speed of chemical reactions in the body. One of those chemical reactions is how many calories you burn, but there's also a lot of other aspects to metabolism. For example, there's how quickly you metabolize caffeine.
mm,
Some people, they can drink coffee, like my wife, she can drink coffee at 7 p.m. and fall asleep just fine. I can have a coffee at 10 a.m. and I'm not sleeping that evening. So that's not a matter of how many calories you're burning, it's just how quickly you process caffeine. The same
mm,
as thing applies to aspirin or Tylenol or Advil, etc. So that's what metabolism means. In terms of how does metabolism change as a woman goes through menopause, surprisingly, very little. This is actually one of those myths that's really out there that, oh, I gained weight, therefore my metabolism is slower. The
mm.
gaining weight part, that's indisputable. You can step on a scale and it'll tell you without judgment, without anything, just you're heavier, you're the same, or you're lighter. However, the attribution is incorrect. I gained weight because my metabolism is slower is not exactly correct. What we realized from a lot of research is that metabolism is unchanged from ages 18 to 50. Between ages 50 and 60, in every decade after 50, it drops by only about 4% per year. And
Mm.
then we have to ask ourselves, why does it drop? Three of the 4% drop because of simply a loss of muscle mass. Simple as that. In other words, if somebody is strength training properly, consistently, etc., they can hold on to their muscle mass for a very long time. And I want to distinguish between muscle mass and strength. Yes, people get weaker as they get older. However, they don't need to lose muscle as they get older. So you can maintain your muscle mass while losing strength. Of course, it's not ideal, but that's aging. But it's certainly better than losing strength and losing muscle mass together.
Mm.
And so, as long as women strength train, the metabolic damage of menopause is very, very minimal. And so, yes, I believe women when they say, I gained weight. However, I think the attribution is incorrect. I gained weight because my metabolism is slower. Well, the question is, how much weight did you gain? If between ages 50 and 60 you gain 4% of your weight, I believe that's because of your metabolism, because that's exactly how much metabolism slows down. If you gain more than 4%, or it happened in a shorter period of time, that is not purely due to metabolism. Maybe it's partially due to metabolism, but there are really four components to what we call total daily energy expenditure. And that just means all the calories that a person burns throughout the day. There are four of those sources, as I mentioned. One of those is metabolism, but there are three others that aren't metabolism. One very obvious source of caloric expenditure is exercise. Another not so obvious source of caloric expenditure is something called TEF. That stands for thermic effect of food. That is, whenever we eat food, we don't absorb 100% of the calories, we absorb about 90% of the calories. And so we spend about 10% of the calories that we just ate absorbing, processing, assimilating the food that we just ate. So if somebody consumes 2,000 calories per day, they're going to
Mm.
use 200 out of those 2,000 dealing with the food that they just ate. So that is component number three. The most important one, the biggest drop in menopause, is component number four, which stands for NEAT, N-E-A-T. And broken down, that is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. These are
Mm.
small, unplanned movements throughout the day that are not formal exercise. For example, some people sit there and they click their pen. Some people sit there, they twirl their hair. Some people sit there and they bounce their ankle. These are all things you don't really put into your schedule. 10 a.m. Tuesday, bounce my ankle. You don't really do that. But these are all subconscious things that across 16 or so waking hours can add up to 900 or more calories per day. Now, when very often throughout menopause, it's NEAT that drops a lot more than metabolism. And so it's
Gotcha.
those little things that are unplanned, very subconscious, those are the ones largely responsible for fat gain as opposed to
Mm.
metabolism.
Got it. Got it. So I guess that explains why so many women feel frustrated because they're doing everything that, that they have been doing, or even sometimes better, but gaining weight or feeling worse. To your point, it's the same routine might not work. There is a shift that's needed, and I guess this phase of life for most women, or anybody for that matter, as you get older, this phase for of life isn't necessarily it isn't about decline of any sort. It's about your body saying, hey, pay a little bit more attention. Your same approach is not going to work. You might have to shift the approach a little bit, and it's a midlife, if you will. It can be a reset, not necessarily a breakdown.
Yeah, 100%. So many women are so frustrated that they're eating the same and yet they're gaining weight. How could that be? Well,
Yeah,
they're thinking that the body is a perfect balance sheet.
yeah,
I'm eating the same, I'm exercising the same. How could that be? It's the stuff you don't plan. It's that knee. It's that bouncing your ankle. It's that fidgeting. So maybe you're eating the same, but your expenditure is lower. Now,
yeah.
instead of being in balance, now you have a surplus instead of being balanced or even a deficit.
Yeah. So that brings up the next important point about food. I mean, we just discussed or talked about food. So how should nutrition strategies evolve for women in midlife? Especially when it comes to managing energy, stabilizing blood sugar, and being more active. And so how should the nutrition strategies evolve?
So there are way more similarities between people over 50 and people under 50. The similarities are in terms of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc. Those are virtually identical.
Mm,
Um, there is just one small change, and that's iron. Women before menopause need iron, supplemental iron, or dietary iron. And women after menopause, because they don't lose blood on a regular basis, no longer need as much iron. They need basically the same amounts as a man of equal size. The things that are different are calories and protein. The caloric requirements go down, and the protein requirements go up.
mm,
And the reason for that is because it takes a lot of effort to process foods that are high in protein, your chicken, your tuna, etc. Just because it takes a lot of effort doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But the body can't extract the protein out of the food as well. Because of that, women over not 50 but more like 60 need more protein compared to younger women. So those are the two big differences. Calories go down, protein goes up.
got it, got it, got it. And so obviously, at any time when we talk about food, we talk about calories, nutrition, things like that. There's all these fad diets and buzz about let's say Mediterranean diet, intermittent fasting, low carb, high fat, high protein, keto, all these, right? They pop up left and right, and some of them work. Some of them are just, again, they go sideways very quickly. So
Yeah.
how should women evaluate which eating approach is ideal for their unique situation, even if it's not ideal? For example, I mean, I don't think there's any diet that is ideal for anybody, but something that fits their unique situation for where they are and what their makeup looks like.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, the only three things that matter from a nutritional perspective are calories, protein, and fiber. And that's for overall
Mm,
health, not just weight loss, but overall health. These are the only three things that matter. The ratio of
mm,
carbs to fats doesn't matter. Whether you eat after six or you don't eat after six doesn't matter. If you do intermittent fasting or you don't do intermittent fasting, doesn't matter. As long as whatever diet you choose meets those three criteria, it's a good diet. Okay?
mm,
So if you look at different diets, the similarities are way, way, way greater than the differences. However, if you're a diet guru and you wrote a book and you want to say, "Hey, this is a good approach," and not just a good approach, this is superior to every other approach out there, you have to focus on the differences. And yet, look at the similarities. Every diet for weight loss tries to accomplish the same end goal, and that is reduce your calories.
mm,
Intermittent fasting does it by reducing meals, so you can have your meals in an 8-hour span. Keto diet does it by reducing carbs. But what does reducing carbs do? It reduces calories. Um, Low fat diets. Well, how do they reduce calories? Well, by reducing fat.
mm.
So the similarities are much greater than differences. Just reduce calories any way you want, whether that's low fat, keto, low carb, portion control, intermittent fasting. They all work because you've reduced your calories. But it's important not to neglect protein. It's very, very important for people, women, etc., to get adequate amounts of protein. Adequate protein depends on three major factors. One, your body weight. Larger people need more food to sustain their body than smaller people. Doesn't matter if they're larger because of fat or muscle.
Mm.
Two, your activity levels. If somebody is inactive or sedentary, they need a lot less protein than somebody who is doing cardio only, and even higher than that, protein only, and about the same protein plus cardio. Sorry, strength plus cardio. Um, and then a final factor that matters in terms of protein is age. Is somebody over 60 or under 60? As I mentioned earlier, people over 60 require higher protein intakes than people under 60.
Mm.
So choose whatever diet you want. If it tastes good to you and it meets those three criteria, the right number of calories, the right amount of protein, the right amount of fiber, you're good to go.
So when you talk to your clients, the folks that take that use your help, do you do you calibrate these three factors along with their sort of their preferences, or how, what sort of diet do they like to prefer? What are their eating habits? What are the taste profile, if you will? And some people, might have dietary restriction, for example. Somebody's a vegetarian or allergic to nuts, for that matter. So do you? Because it sounds like you don't necessarily subscribe or prescribe a diet term, right? Oh,
Yeah.
hey, go on intermittent fasting or Mediterranean or keto or whatever the
Yeah.
case might be. Your approach is more like, hey, let's look at this balance, the triangle balance that you just talked about of
Yeah.
those calories, protein, fiber, and let's design it specifically so it is to you, not necessarily in general. What's your approach on that?
Yeah, so I start them off with what are you currently doing and how can we make as few changes as possible that will still
Got
lead
it.
to your desired goal. I'm looking for what's the easiest we can do, not what's the most difficult we can do. The most
Yeah.
difficult they've already done. That's called a diet or a meal plan. And how long does it work? For 2 or 3 weeks, as long as you follow it.
Yeah.
The problem is not inherently in the biochemical makeup of that specific diet. The problem is in following the diet. So really, the issue is not nutritional. The issue is
Mhm.
behavioral, logistical, emotional. And we don't solve those kinds of problems with nutritional solutions. We need better solutions. We need to, the biggest reasons people don't stick to diets in no particular order: one, emotional eating; two, stress eating; three, lack of planning; and four, cravings. It's not
Mm.
because they're not getting the extra cucumber in their salad. So, really, when I work with clients, I'm trying to figure out what are you currently eating? What's the
Mm.
easiest way to either reduce your calories or improve your protein or improve your fiber? That's it. I'm looking for not a massive overhaul. I'm looking
Yeah.
for the smallest change you can make. I'll give you an example. I have a client. He is a freelancer. He installs appliances, and for breakfast he drives by McDonald's. He has a large coffee, and he's a big guy. He's 6'5", 350 pounds. So he has a large coffee and a muffin. That approximately is an 800-calorie breakfast. The fiber content of that breakfast is maybe 2 grams. The protein content of that breakfast is maybe 7 or 8 grams. And so I
Yeah.
thought to myself, okay, what does he like about the coffee and a muffin? Is it the healthiest? No, it's pretty close to the least healthiest. But the reason he eats this way is there's two benefits. One, it tastes good.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
is it's simple. It requires no preparation time. He goes up to the drive-through window and picks it up. So it's got two benefits. So if I had told him I want you to at home make a veggie and chicken omelet, well, now it tastes good, it's healthy, it's way better nutritionally, but logistically, now there's prep time. Of course, taste is subjective, but I think a muffin tastes better than an omelet. And so we have to
We all
figure
do.
out how can we keep it tasting good and
Yeah.
prep time minimal. So I thought, okay, what's better than that? Anything higher fiber and higher protein. So I said, all
Mm.
right, gas stations, Walmart's, Costco's, they all have some kind of protein shake. For him, he got milk to go. Um, that has 38 grams of protein. And I told he's a big guy, so I told him drink two of those. Why two? Because for a guy his size, somebody that size needs approximately 3,300, 3,500 calories per day just to lose weight. Never mind maintain their weight. And so I wanted his breakfast to be probably around 750 to 800 calories, just like before. However, it needed to be a better composition of those 750 to 800 calories.
Mhm.
So I said, drink two of those shakes. One shake is about 250 calories. That's not going to sustain you to lunch. You're going to be hungry again very soon. Um, so drink two of those. And there's these fiber bars called Fiber One bars. One little bar is 90 calories, but 5 grams of fiber, quite
Mm.
high. I told him have two of those bars. That's 10 grams of fiber for breakfast as well as 76 grams of protein. Is it as good as an omelet? Not really. Is it better than coffee and a muffin? 100%. Is it still quick? Yes. Does it
Yeah.
taste good? It tastes like a milkshake. It tastes fantastic. And that's the only thing I had him do differently. Lunch was unchanged, dinner was unchanged, weekends were unchanged. And just with that one strategy, he managed to lose 20 pounds in a matter of 3 months.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. So I guess it's about being intentional, right? The point is that be intentional about what you eat, when you eat, and how you eat, so that your body can work with you rather than it's working against you. And I think that's the big lesson that this last a few minutes of our discussion. That's what I get out of it is that it's about being intentional, most importantly than
Yes.
anything else at
Yeah.
all.
It's it's like 95% logistical management and 5% what you actually eat.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard. Again, it's always difficult because everybody has a different life situation. To your point, this guy, he might have limitations in the morning from a scheduling perspective or things like that. And I think the biggest drawback of the information flow at us is this ideal state that people create in their mind, like, oh, look how what this person is able to do, or how
Yeah,
often they're able to do either workout or go out for a run or things like that, without understanding what is the opportunity cost that's been given up for them, right? Do you have a lot of help at home in the morning, for example, do you have grandparents that are maybe at home, especially for moms and women? It is a big balancing act to try to get that figured out. Hey, the kids need to be fed, the kids need to be got off to school, and do you have enough help? If you don't, then are you going to worry about, hey, let me go make my omelet for that matter, or let me go egg whites and spinach and chicken sausage and take 45 minutes to do it, but I
yeah,
got all these other 10,000 things that I got to get done. So it's not easy. It's a hard balance to make.
yeah, 100%. And again, the goal is to make it is to keep the benefits of what's currently working
Yeah.
while replacing it with healthier alternatives.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Let's move into movement, right? So because cardio and restrictive diet, a lot of times they do miss the mark in midlife, from what we understand. What is the biggest mistake you see women make about the exercise or the regimen or the protocol that they follow in their 40s and beyond?
I'm sure that a lot of people watching this expect me to say not strength training. That is a big mistake, but not the biggest mistake. The biggest mistake is even simpler, not exercising.
Mm,
Um, it's a mentality of having all or none. I either have the perfect exercise plan where I exercise an hour a day or I don't exercise at all. 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes. 10 minutes is better than 5 minutes, but
Man, you're talking
maybe
about me right now. It's just,
yeah.
it's right now. Go ahead.
But from our clients who are,
Yeah.
maybe in your position, who are extremely busy, they don't know what to do. I tell
Yep.
them, listen, go up and down the stairs once a day, and that's good enough for now. Is it the perfect plan? Is it going to burn a lot of calories? No, but the
Hmm.
behavioral benefits of that are pretty large. You
Mm.
tell yourself, basically, I just did something healthy for myself today. Let me try and do more healthy things that day. Um, Maybe you go for a walk. I once had a professor who called dogs public health machines because people might not walk for themselves, but they will walk their dog.
Mm.
Uh, so the biggest mistake women make in midlife is not exercising. The second biggest mistake is not strength training. And when I say strength training, I ask a lot of women, do you strength train? They'll say, yes, I do body pump classes. Body pump classes are great, but they're not strength training. They are cardio with weights. Again, nothing wrong with that. Cardio is great, but it's not strength training. So I mean real progressive strength training. And when we say strength training, we think of weights. Strength training
Mm.
is not about the equipment. Strength training is about the resistance. It doesn't matter if you use weights, resistance bands, your body weight, anything else. The most important thing is the resistance. So, what is the resistance that separates strength training from not strength training? That is about 15 reps. If you can do 15 reps or less, that's strength training. If you can do, if the weight you're using, you can do 16 reps, it's no longer strength training, it's endurance training. And endurance training is great, but it's not strength.
Mm.
It's not the benefits of strength training. And so that's what differentiates strength training from not strength training. Not the equipment, but the resistance.
That is amazing. I had never heard it put that way, but that makes all the logical sense. So what you're saying is that, hey, let's say you take, and again, as you said, equipment is not necessarily that critical. I mean, it could be a resistance band, it could be dumbbells, kettlebell,
Yeah,
whatever, right? Doesn't matter.
yeah,
So let's say you're doing a chest press and you take two dumbbells that are 20 pounds, for example. If you are able to do 16, 17, 18, 19, at that point you've moved on to the endurance training
bingo.
because you're using that weight. Now let's say you move up to 25 pounds and you're only able to do 12 at with that weight. That's where the strength training, that technically is strength training, and you haven't moved on to the endurance training. Is that accurate?
Bingo. That's exactly it. Now, if
Perfect.
at 25 pounds you can only do 12, right now that is strength training. Do you get stronger? You can do 17 with that. It's the same weight is no longer strength training.
So you got to crank it up to 27 and a half, 30 pounds, whatever. Like
Bingo.
that's an easy way to remember it too, because that then all of a sudden, logical, you start, mapping it in your head and say, oh yeah, now I'm past that point. Now I got to increase the weight, increase the resistance. And that's what my next question is, that why do you think that resistance is such a game changer when it comes to metabolism, for example, or insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity, especially when it comes to women?
Well, with any exercise, we have a certain exercise prescription. And
Mm,
what do I mean by that? Well, the same way that I mean when a doctor prescribes a medication, there's a lot of precision behind it. There's the name of the medication, the dosage should be taken with food or without food, morning or
mm,
evening. But to tell somebody do strength training, that's not enough information. Or do cardio, that's not enough
yeah.
information. You have a lot more details that are missing to make it a good prescription. Um, and so in the world of exercise, we have something called the FIT principle, FITT. That stands for, when it comes to cardio, frequency, intensity, time, and type. When it comes to
Okay.
strength training, that is frequency, intensity. We don't usually use time to measure strength training. Instead, we use sets and reps. And the reason we don't use time is because two people can be in the gym for an hour. One person does an exercise and then sits and swipes their phone for 10 minutes before doing the next exercise. The
Oh,
next
I've seen
person,
those gym bros. I've seen a
yeah,
lot of those gym bros. Yes.
exactly. But another person can go to the gym and diligently go from one
Yeah.
machine to the next, to the next, to the next. Both
Yeah.
people spent an hour, but they did a very different amount of work. So that's why we don't use time for strength training. Rather, we use sets and reps. And so we need to know these details: frequency, intensity, time, or sets and reps, and type: cardio, strength training, stretching, etc. Um, and so there's a right exercise prescription for diabetes, and that's a different prescription than for high blood pressure or arthritis or menopause, etc. If you want, we can go into that, but
Yeah, no,
essentially,
say more about that. I think that would be helpful. Say
sure.
a little more of that.
So specifically, when it comes to type 2 diabetes, the right exercise prescription, how do we measure effectiveness of exercise for any given thing? Well, you measure, it starts with a goal. If the goal is just strength, then it's a very simple measurement. How much weight are you lifting? But if the goal is not strength, if the goal is improvements in insulin sensitivity or specifically in blood sugar, insulin resistance, it's also a very simple measurement. It's either your fasting glucose or your A1C. I prefer A1C because it's a more stable long-term measurement, but even
Right.
fasting glucose will get the job done. Um, and so the way we measure the effectiveness of any exercise for diabetes or insulin resistance is by figuring out what is the impact of that exercise on A1C. Um, and so there is a right exercise prescription for the greatest reductions. If somebody combined, assuming perfect conditions, no limitations on time or anything else, exercise by itself without any changes to medications, supplements, or diet can reduce A1C by as much as 1.2 to 1.5%. That is on par with the best medications out there: metformin, Janamed, etc. And so, what is the exercise prescription? Again, there's the cardio prescription and there's the strength
Mm,
training prescription. Let's start with strength training first. One common question, one detail we need to know is what's better, full body workouts or body part splits, where one day we do chest and back, the
yeah.
next day we do legs and abs, etc. Full body workouts are far superior to body part splits. The reason for that is that only the muscles worked become insulin sensitive for the next 2 or 3 days, which means that if you're doing a body part split, you're doing chest and back, your chest and back become insulin sensitive for the next 2 or 3 days, but they're insulin resistant for the next 4 or 5 days.
Mm,
However, if you're hitting chest and back 3 times per week, just like the rest of your body, then you're going to be insulin sensitive the entire week. Um, and you can keep that going. So that's the first detail. Full body workouts superior to body part splits. The next thing we need to know is the number of sets. We need to do about 3 sets minimum in order to have those kinds of reductions. When research compares 2 sets or less versus 3 sets or more, we see that doing 2 sets or less decreases A1C by about 0.3, 0.4%. Not very impressive, nothing to write home about. It's almost like, why am I spending all this effort and time and getting so little results? But when you go from 2 sets up to 3 sets, yes, you've increased the amount of work you have to do by 50%, but you've tripled the results. Now you can get reductions of 1.0 to 1.2%. Um, so that is the sets, 3 or more sets. The number of reps needs to be between 10 and 15 repetitions.
got it.
Research concludes that above 15 doesn't lower blood sugar as much, below 10 doesn't lower blood sugar as much. 10 to 15 is the sweet spot. Lastly, frequency. How many days per week? 3 days per week minimum. Um, when research is done with 2 times per week or less of strength training, it reduces blood sugar or A1C by about 0.4, 0.5%. Again, nothing to write home about. When you go from 2 days per week to 3 days per week, now blood sugar is lowered, A1C, by as much as 1.0 to 1.2%. So there's our perfect strength training prescription for diabetes. So to review, the frequency, 3 days per week, number of sets, 3 or more, number of reps, 10 to 15. Finally, the weight. The weight needs to be heavy enough that on your last repetition, you have to ask yourself, how many more could I have done? The answer should be maybe one or two more. And that should be a maybe. I'm not sure if I could have done one or two more.
Mm.
That's how heavy it should be. And that's why I shy away from saying a specific number because A, it's different person to person, and B, different muscle to muscle. What's
Yeah.
difficult for the biceps may not be difficult at all for the quadriceps, for the legs. And so that's the strength training prescription. The cardio prescription also goes down two pathways. Like with strength training, we had full body versus body part splits. With cardio, we have interval training versus continuous. What's superior for A1C, for blood sugar? It's clear that interval training is superior to continuous exercise,
Okay.
even when time is equated and even when the calories burned are the same. So it's clear that interval training is superior to steady state cardio. Now, don't take that to mean that you shouldn't do steady state cardio. It's still good for you for other reasons,
Yeah.
but interval training is better for A1C reductions. So that's the first question we need to answer. The second question we need to answer is the duration. Unlike strength training, it's more of a weekly duration that's important as opposed to a per session duration. The
Hmm.
weekly duration needs to be 90 minutes of high intensity exercise, okay? High intensity cardio. And it doesn't matter how you split it up, whether you do twice a week for 45 minutes, 3 times per week for 30 minutes, or any other split between. Um, that is your weekly duration. Now, if we're talking about high intensity, let's define what that means. Intensity in cardio is defined as a percentage of your maximal heart rate. A percentage of your maximal heart rate. So high intensity is anything above 85% of your maximal heart rate, which brings us to the question of how do I figure out my maximal heart rate? And it's a very simple formula. It's 220 minus your age. So if the person listening or watching is, let's say, 60 years old, 220 minus 60 makes 160. That's your max. You take 85% of that, and you need to
Got
be
it.
working predominant. Your intervals need to go above 85%. Okay. The next question is, what should be the duration of the intervals? Is it short, short intervals that are very difficult, or longer intervals that are easier? Medium intervals, 30 to 60 seconds is just what the doctor ordered. Finally, how many intervals? 8 to 14. So there is our cardio prescription for diabetes. To review again, the frequency doesn't matter as long as you have the weekly duration of 90 minutes
Yeah.
or more. The intensity needs to be about 85%. The duration of each interval is 30 to 60 seconds, and the number of intervals is 8 to 14.
That's amazing. This is a very actionable plan, right? I mean, what you just shared, it sets the framework, if you will, or hey, what you need to do and how often you need to do it with what intensity. Now, just to follow up on the sets that you were talking about, that hey, 3 sets is ideal, right? 3 sets is what you should target to. Does it get to diminishing returns after three? So, for example, if I'm able to do 5 sets,
Yeah,
does it after three? It's like, well, you can, you should, if you want to. Nobody's going to stop you. But after three, the returns are pretty minimal.
yeah,
And I mean, two or less, yeah, the difference between two or three is big. But after three, it's like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
yeah. Great question. Does more effort lead to more results, and are the results proportional to the extra effort? The answer at this time is actually we don't know. Most research is done in either 2 sets or 3 sets. Very little research goes into 4 sets,
Got
five
it.
sets, etc. So at this point, we just don't know. That's something that I every 6 months I check back and see, is more sets better. The
Yeah,
research is not that robust yet, where we can actually definitively say 4 is better than 3, or no, 4 is not better than 3. And that's for
got it.
diabetes. For PCOS, one of my other books, it's actually pretty conclusive that 3 sets is kind of it.
Mhm.
4 sets, you don't get additional greater benefit.
Got it, got it. So if we go rewind what we discussed a little bit earlier too, you had talked about NEAT, right? The
Yeah.
non-ex next exercise thermogenesis. So can you quickly walk through or explain how these small little things, for lack of a better term, can add up to help blood sugar control or insulin sensitivity?
Yeah, it's very very simple. How does insulin resistance happen? There are many causes. One of those causes is a chronic surplus in calories, and so you eat more than you burn. And so, if
Mm,
you burn more by spending more time on meat, you'll be able to expect you eat the same amount, but you increase your expenditure. So the surplus is smaller, or it's there's no surplus. It's balanced.
got it, got it. Yeah, that's. intuitively it makes all the sense. Like, hey, again, if the goal becomes, bring down the calorie, every little step, every little motion, every little, hey, I'm gonna park my car 4 spaces down in front of the grocery store. I mean, those add up. Those four extra or parking spots,
Yeah.
30 steps that way, 30 steps back. It always and should make a difference. So that intuitively makes sense. So there's a lot that you covered that's fantastic in this last few minutes. That you got to balance out cardio and strength training. Focus a little bit more towards strength training. Know the difference between strength training and endurance training. Which again,
Yes.
that was an eye opener for me too. I'll try to incorporate that for myself
Yeah.
as well. And then it's that movement should be able to recharge you, not just
Yes.
completely destroy you, and hence the sets, the reps. Can you do one more? Because maybe if you push, you did that five more again, then you strike the balance between endurance versus strength. And God, do you want to walk out of the gym so exhausted that you are just not able to do anything, right? So
Yeah.
that's a
Exactly.
that's a fantastic approach.
Yeah, and I think a lot of confusion comes from just the lack of definitions.
Yeah,
I'm glad I defined what strength training is. A lot of people don't even have a definition of what is exercise, what is cardio, etc.
yeah.
So let me go definition right now. Exercise is a deliberate attempt to improve a fitness quality. And there are three major fitness qualities and a bunch of minor ones. The major ones are strength, endurance, flexibility. Endurance is cardio. Minor ones are things like speed, agility, quickness, and so on. And so, if so, for example, if somebody tells me I am walking 10,000 steps per day, that's great. It's better than walking 5,000 steps, but it's not exercise. Okay? It's good
Mm.
for you, but not exercise. Um, in why? Because are you deliberately trying to improve your strength, endurance, flexibility? If you're trying to deliberately improve your strength by walking 10,000 steps per day, you're doing the wrong thing. If you're trying to improve your flexibility by walking 10,000 steps per day, it's
Yeah.
the wrong thing. People think, well, at least this is cardio, which brings us to the definition of cardio. Is it really cardio? Here's the
Mm.
definition of cardio. Cardio is a two-part definition. Part one is intensity, part two is duration. The
Mm.
minimum intensity for something to be considered cardio is 65% of your maximal heart rate. The minimum duration for something to be considered cardio is 20 minutes. So
Mm.
it needs to be done for it's above 65% for 20 minutes or longer. For most people who are not extremely, extremely, extremely out of shape, just walking on flat ground is
Mm.
not enough to get their pulse up to 65%. Don't get me wrong, walking the 10,000 steps per day is great for you, but it's not going to improve your endurance. So that's why I don't consider it exercise, even though it's beneficial for you.
Got it. Got it. No, it makes all the sense. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and we'll talk about stress that none of us have. We never. Everybody is happy singing "Kumbaya." We don't have stress, but in reality, all of us do have to deal with stress, and especially women as they age. Again, with the family stuff and changes to their body chemistry and overall well-being does cause stress, and cortisol is often overlooked. In that
Yes.
regard. What in your mind, how does it impact fat storage, blood sugar regulation, things like that?
Yeah. So in the body, hormones are like symphony. One hormone that's out of balance will affect a bunch of other hormones. Um, Not to get too technical, but there is something called the steroid hormone pathway. It's nothing to do
Mm.
with steroids that build muscle. Steroid just refers to the chemical structure of certain hormones. And cortisol is a steroid, so is testosterone, so is estrogen, so is progesterone, and a few others. Um, but when cortisol is high, it depletes estrogen as well as testosterone and progesterone in both men and women. So don't think of testosterone as being a purely male hormone.
Mm.
It does decline in menopause, just not as much as estrogen. Estrogen drops 90% in 2 years. Testosterone drops 10% in 2 years in women. In men, it varies. Um, but how it affects fat storage is it's not just cortisol by itself, it's the ratio of cortisol to insulin to testosterone, etc. Generally speaking, fat storage does change from before menopause to after menopause. Um, Although there are exceptions to this rule, premenopausal women, by and large, store body fat in their triceps as well as their buns and thighs. After menopause, there may be the same amount of body fat, but it just shifts where it goes. So they actually lose fat in their triceps and their quads and their butt, and it goes to their belly and love handles. And usually
Oh,
that's a combination of high cortisol and potentially the beginning of insulin resistance.
man. Ooh, yeah, this. No wonder it took you. It takes you an inordinate amount of time to do the research because again, these are write down details that are relevant, right?
Oh,
It's because again, these little body changes. Once you start paying attention, once you start looking, again, it's true for everybody, regardless of gender. I think it's true
yeah,
for everybody that once you start paying attention to these things that are changing, these things that are manifesting themselves as proof points, you start noticing this. And most people are not aware unless they have a chance to talk to someone like you, an expert who's done this and has been doing it for a long time. So this is thank you for sharing that. I had no idea. I absolutely had no idea.
yeah.
Um,
It's like a symphony.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm gonna remember that. So before we wrap up, let's make this actionable. Okay, if a listener or somebody who's watching this podcast is ready to start making changes today, small, big, medium, doesn't matter. Where do they begin? I want to hear about the small shifts, the big shifts. How should they track their progress and things like that?
Yeah. So it starts with setting goals. We probably all know about SMART goals, but if not, I'm just going to say it right now so we're all on the same page. SMART is an acronym, SMART. Stands for specific. So not just I want to lose weight, but I want to lose 20 pounds. M is measurable. So again, not just I want to lose weight, I want to lose 20 pounds. A, action oriented or actionable. I want to go to the gym 3 times a week or twice a week or whatever the case may be. R, realistic. In other words, I want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Probably not going to happen unless somebody's 400 pounds overweight. And finally, time bound. There's a deadline. Not just I want to lose weight, not just I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 20 pounds in about 40 weeks, in 20 weeks, whatever the time may be. So those are SMART goals. Now, there are two kinds of SMART goals. There are outcome goals and there are behavior goals. We need both. Outcome goals is the end result. For example, I want to lose 20 pounds. Behavior goals are I want to go to the gym 3 times per week. And the reason
Mm,
we need both is we have to relate the behaviors to the outcomes. We need to create a relationship between effort and results. After all, if we're putting in all this effort and it's not leading us to our desired result, if we actually have good compliance, we know we're doing the wrong things. On the other hand, maybe we're not getting the result because we don't have good compliance. So we have to diagnose why aren't we getting to the outcome goal? Is it that the behaviors are wrong or that we're not following the behaviors to begin with?
mm,
Um, and if we were not following the behaviors to begin with, why aren't we following them? What's the obstacle? Is it knowledge? Is it confidence in our ability to get there? So we have to identify that. Next, we have to figure out what's the smallest, easiest, simplest things we can do to get us from where we are to where we want to be. Again, a diet or a meal plan is good in the short term. And if you don't plan on following this kind of diet or meal plan beyond 2 or 3 weeks, try that. But if you want to make a lifestyle change, don't think about the diet. Think about what's preventing you logistically from making the choices that you want to make. Do you snack late at night? If so, what can prevent you from snacking late at night? Could you eat more earlier in the day? Could
mm.
you could you have better snacks? And nobody's complaining, nobody's gaining weight because they're snacking on too much celery late at night. They're snacking on cookies and chips.
Yeah.
So are you snacking on that stuff because it tastes good? Are you hungry? Is it just something to eat? If it's really because you just want something to eat and anything is equally good, well, try celery, try carrots, try broccoli. Now, if you're snacking on that because it tastes good, well, what are other things that taste good but are lower in calories?
Mm.
One of my favorite late night snacks is something called cognac jelly. It sounds like the drink, but it's not the drink. Cognac is spelled Konjac. Um, I got this. I was once shopping in a Korean grocery store, and Korean pop stars they drink this to keep their weight. Unfortunately for them, abnormally low. It's 3 or 4 calories, but it becomes almost like a juice pouch. But again, just 3 or 4 calories, filling, delicious, sweet. But again, only 3 or 4 calories. So you have to figure out what is it logistically or
Yeah.
behaviorally that's preventing you from getting to those goals, and figure out ways to accomplish those same goals with a healthier alternative. Again, if the purpose that a snack late at night is serving is just having something to munch on, and anything will do, you can do a vegetable. That's a good
Yeah.
help. If you're doing it for taste, do something else that tastes good but is lower in calories. If you're doing it because you're hungry, well, figure out can you eat earlier in the day, more earlier in the day. So it's all like 95 to 98% of it is just figuring out logistics, like simple things.
Yeah. So I actually I'm headed to South Korea next week, so I'll keep an eye out for cognac jelly and see if I can maybe bring some back.
Check it out.
And again, yeah, I do I do shop at a lot of these East Asian food stores, and it's
Yeah,
amazing what you can find if you especially just open your eyes a little bit and look around to what's available from different cultures as well, different countries, different ethnicities to see. Ah, that's how, they do it. It might be worth incorporating or trying it out. I mean, heck, what do you have to lose unless you're allergic to it or it can
yeah,
cause any sort of a damage? It's no harm in trying it. I mean, heck, if you don't like it, trash can's right there,
yeah,
So I yeah, I completely agree. And I think so when we talk about these actionable plans, I know you talked about diet. I think it would be safe to say from a movement perspective, as you were so passionately talking about it a little bit earlier, is make the small changes, know the big changes, and slowly try to get to those big changes in a manner that is sustainable. And I like how you put it, from a lifestyle perspective, right? It's not there's a reason it's called lifestyle. It's not the
yeah,
2 to 3 weeks thing. It's not called a week style or a day style or an hour style. It's a lifestyle, which means it needs to be part of your life. It needs to be part of your everyday routine. Be thoughtful about it. Be deliberate about it, and not just react to it and say, "Man, I am." And I've struggled with it too, right? Man,
yeah,
I'm ready to go. 3 weeks that I'm like, eh. I was ready to go, right? I guess
yeah,
it's a never it's tough. It's hard. So, everybody has to have the grace for themselves and take it easy on yourself in the sense that you are trying, do make the effort. And if I could conclude by just saying that you're not necessarily behind. You're not broken. You're just it's a new day. You're waking up to a new phase of your life, of strength, of awareness, and it's never going to be too late to rewrite the story. Just small changes, methodical, deliberate, incremental is what's going to get everybody to the point where they're ready to take on the rest of their life.
yeah. That's a great message, and that's actually the same message I often give to my clients.
Mm.
The goal is progress, not perfection. All you
Mm.
want to do is just beat last week. For example, I'll often tell my clients I want you to have a source of protein or a serving of protein with each meal. Assuming that's 21 meals per week, 3 times a day, times 7 days a week, maybe the intention is to have it 21 days a week. But if they're not used to that, maybe week one, they only did it 10 out of 21. I say, that's great. That's better than before. Now let's try and beat that next week. All we're shooting for is 11 and then 12 and so on. Just make it a game. Just try to beat last week.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I don't know where my daughter heard this. My daughter is going to be 10 this year. I don't know where she heard this, and she's an avid uh she just wants to play sports all the time, right? I mean, right
Mhm.
now she's at a camp where they're doing strength training and cardio actually as we speak. Her and
Yeah.
her brother both. And I don't know if she heard it from one of her coaches or someone that she was talking to, one of her soccer coaches. So she came home and she goes, "Hey dad, do you know what that old saying, practice makes what?" And I said, "Practice makes perfect." She's like, "No, practice makes progress."
Permanent. Yeah.
I was like, all right, man. I'm not arrogant enough to not be able to learn from a 8, 7, 9 year old little kid, but it
Yeah.
stuck with me. I mean, this was probably about a year and a half ago when she said that. She's like, "No, Daddy, practice makes progress." I'm like, that's a good mantra to live by. So I
I
can
like
certainly
it.
appreciate that. Well, Igor, thank you so much for your time. This has been brilliant. I myself learned a lot, and obviously I can share a lot of those tips with my loved ones, especially women in my life that are either approaching that or going through this big shift in their life. So I truly appreciate your time, your expertise, and yeah, I look forward to staying in touch and talking again.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me on here, Sandeep.
Take care.